help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Please like the video and share your thoughts on the video. Your feedback helps make the contents better. Now let's get to the story.
I froze in the doorway, my hand still on the knob of our bedroom door. The words coming from inside made my blood run cold. "We'll increase the dose tonight," my wife Jennifer whispered, her voice barely audible. "He won't notice a thing. He never does." There was a pause, then a low chuckle from someone else in the room. A man's voice, in my bedroom, in the middle of the day. I stood there like a statue, my wallet forgotten on the dresser inside, my entire world tilting on its axis. 8 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Whatever this was. My hand started shaking as I quietly pulled the door shut, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. My name is David Richardson, and I'm 34 years old. Up until that moment on that ordinary Tuesday afternoon, I thought I had a pretty good life. I worked as a regional sales manager for an industrial supply company, the kind of job that paid well but required a lot of travel. Jennifer and I had been high school sweethearts, married young, and built what I thought was a solid life together in our modest home in suburban Ohio. No kids yet, but we'd been talking about it. Or at least I thought we had been. Now, standing in my own hallway, listening to my wife conspire with some stranger about increasing some mysterious dose, I realized I didn't know anything at all. I backed away from the door slowly, carefully, like I was defusing a bomb. Every step felt like it took an hour. When I finally made it to the front door, I slipped outside and sat in my car, staring at the steering wheel, trying to make sense of what I just heard. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these stories matter. The thing was, I wasn't supposed to be home. I had a client meeting downtown at 2, and I'd left for the office that morning like always. But I'd grabbed the wrong wallet, the old one I kept in my gym bag, and realized it halfway to the meeting when I went to grab my client's business card. My actual wallet, with my credit cards and ID, was sitting on the dresser in the bedroom. A simple mistake. The kind of mistake that changes everything. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, my mind racing through every possibility. Was Jennifer sick? Was she taking medication I didn't know about? But that didn't explain the male voice, or the sinister tone, or the way she'd said he won't notice a thing, like I was some kind of mark in a con game. My phone buzzed. It was Jennifer. "Hey honey, hope your meeting goes well. Love you," with a little heart emoji. I stared at that message for a long time. The casual betrayal of it made me want to throw my phone through the windshield. Instead, I took a screenshot. I don't know why, but something told me I'd need to document everything from this point forward. I drove to a coffee shop and canceled my meeting, making up some excuse about a family emergency, which wasn't exactly a lie. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a private investigator. The guy's name was Tony DeLuca, and I'd actually met him at a business networking event a year ago. He'd given me his card and joked that everyone needs a good PI eventually. I'd laughed it off then. I wasn't laughing now. "Tony? Yeah, it's David Richardson. We met at the Chamber of Commerce mixer last year. Listen, I need your help, and I need you to be discreet." Tony met me at the coffee shop 30 minutes later. He was a short, stocky guy in his 50s with graying hair and the kind of face that had seen too much. He listened to my story without interrupting, making notes on a small pad. When I finished, he sat back and sighed. "Okay, here's what we're going to do," he said. "First, you're going to go home tonight and act completely normal. Don't mention the wallet. Don't confront her. Nothing. Second, I'm going to install some cameras in your house. Small ones, hidden. Third, we're going to check your bank accounts, credit cards, everything. And fourth," he paused, looking me dead in the eye, "you need to prepare yourself for what we might find. You sure you want to know?" I nodded. "I need to know everything." That night, I came home at my usual time. Jennifer was in the kitchen making dinner, looking beautiful and normal and like the woman I'd loved for over half my life. She smiled when she saw me, came over and kissed my cheek. "How was your meeting?" "Oh, I said, my acting skills being put to the test. Same old corporate stuff. Boring as always. The lie came easier than I expected. Maybe I was better at deception than I thought. Or maybe I just learned from the best. Well, I made your favorite. Chicken Parmesan," she said brightly. "And I picked up that beer you like. Figured you could use it after a long day." I looked at the plate she handed me, at the beer already opened and waiting. "We'll increase the dose," her voice echoed in my head. My stomach turned, but I smiled. "You're the best, Jen. What would I do without you?" "Probably starve." She laughed, and I laughed too, even though nothing was funny anymore. I waited until she went to the bathroom, then quickly scraped half my food into the garbage disposal and poured most of the beer down the sink, replacing it with water from the tap. When she came back, I made a show of finishing my meal and yawning dramatically. "Man, I'm exhausted. I think I'm going to turn in early." "That's fine, honey," she said. And was it my imagination? Or did she look pleased? "I'll be up in a bit. I'm going to watch some TV first." I went upstairs, got into bed, and pretended to fall asleep. Through barely open eyes, I watched Jennifer come in an hour later. She stood over me for a long moment, watching. Then she pulled out her phone and texted someone. A few minutes later, I heard the front door open quietly, footsteps on the stairs, and then a man I'd never seen before walked into my bedroom. He was younger than me, maybe late 20s, tall and gym-fit with styled hair and designer clothes. The kind of guy who probably used the word bro unironically. He grinned at Jennifer, and they kissed. Right there. With me supposedly sleeping not 10 feet away. "Is he out?" the guy whispered. "Like a light," Jennifer whispered back. "I've been giving him extra melatonin in his dinner and beer for weeks now. He sleeps so hard he doesn't hear anything." They left the room, and I heard them go into the guest room down the hall. I won't describe what I heard next, but let's just say the walls in our house were thin, and they weren't trying to be quiet. I lay there in the dark, my fists clenched so hard my nails drew blood from my palms, and stared at the ceiling. This was my life now. This was my marriage. But here's the thing about betrayal. It clarifies things. Lying there, listening to my wife cheat on me under my own roof, something hardened inside me. The hurt was there, sure, a massive weight crushing my chest, but underneath it, cold and sharp, was anger. And with that anger came focus. The next morning, while Jennifer was in the shower, I checked her phone. She'd gotten sloppy, probably confident in her melatonin routine. No passcode. I found everything. Text messages with Brad. Of course his name was Brad. Going back 6 months. Detailed plans about their future together. But worse, much worse, were the bank statements she'd been hiding. Jennifer had been systematically draining our joint savings account, transferring money to a separate account I didn't know existed. Over $40,000 gone. Money we'd been saving for a down payment on a bigger house. Money I'd been working 60-hour weeks to earn. She'd been planning to leave me, take the money, and run off with Brad. The melatonin wasn't just about facilitating her affair. It was about keeping me docile and unaware while she robbed me blind. I took pictures of everything. Every text. Every bank statement. Every incriminating message. Then I put her phone back exactly where I'd found it. Tony had installed the cameras the next day while Jennifer was at her yoga class, which I now knew was code for meeting Brad at a hotel. We had cameras in the living room, kitchen, and yes, even the guest bedroom. All perfectly legal since it was my house too. "Now we wait," Tony said. "Get everything documented. You're going to need it." "For what?" I asked. "For destroying them," he said simply. "Both of them. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is about to take a turn that you won't believe. Trust me, the revenge is just getting started. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. By day, I was David, the devoted husband, the guy who kissed his wife goodbye and went to work and came home tired. By night, I was David, the detective, the man who watched camera footage and documented every betrayal, who was building a case brick by brick. The footage was damning. Jennifer and Brad met at our house at least 3 times a week. Sometimes they just had their affair in my guest room. Other times they sat in my living room, drinking my wine, and talked about their future. I watched Brad put his feet up on my coffee table and tell Jennifer how he couldn't wait until this was all over, and they could be together openly. I watched Jennifer laugh and say she was almost done, liquidating the assets without me noticing. That part stung. Liquidating the assets. That's what 8 years of marriage meant to her. Assets to be liquidated. But Tony and I weren't just collecting evidence. We were investigating. Turns out Brad wasn't just some random guy. He was a personal trainer at Jennifer's gym, how cliché, and he had a history. Tony found 2 other married women Brad had been involved with in the past 3 years. Both relationships had ended with divorces and mysteriously drained bank accounts. Brad was a professional, a con artist with biceps and a charming smile. "This guy's a predator," Tony said, showing me the files. "He targets married women with money, seduces them, and helps them hide assets before the divorce. Then he gets a cut. Your wife probably thinks she's in love, but to him, she's just another payday." That knowledge should have made me feel better, but it didn't. It just meant Jennifer wasn't just a cheater. She was a fool too. I also discovered something else. The melatonin wasn't the only thing Jennifer had been giving me. Going through our credit card statements, I found charges for something called kratom, an herbal supplement that causes drowsiness and mental fog. She'd been grinding it up and putting it in my coffee every morning for months. That explained why I'd been feeling so tired lately, why I'd been having trouble concentrating at work. My own wife had been drugging me. But Tony and I had a plan. A beautiful, perfect plan. First, I went to see a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but the best divorce attorney in the state. Her name was Patricia Vance, and she had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. I walked into her office with 3 binders full of evidence. Printed text messages, bank statements, photographs, timestamps from the camera footage, everything. Patricia looked through it all with the kind of cold efficiency that made me glad she was on my side. When she finished, she looked up at me with something almost like respect. "Mr. Richardson," she said, "your wife and her boyfriend have committed several crimes here. Financial fraud, theft, possibly even poisoning depending on how we present the drugging allegations. We can bury them both. But I need to know, how far do you want to take this?" "All the way," I said. "I want them to feel exactly what they made me feel." Patricia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Then here's what we're going to do." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. We weren't going to tip our hand. Not yet. Instead, we were going to let Jennifer and Brad think they were winning. I would continue pretending to be the oblivious husband, taking my drugged coffee and my melatonin-laced dinners, sleeping through their affair, while they drained the last of what they thought were our assets. Except Tony had helped me do something. We'd moved all the real money out of our joint accounts and into a secured account in my name only. The $40,000 Jennifer had already stolen? That was going to be the bait. The account she was still draining had been refilled with money from a personal loan I'd taken out, secured against my 401k. It looked like our savings, but it was really my insurance policy. See, here's the thing about thieves. They get greedy. Patricia predicted that once Jennifer thought she'd gotten everything she could, she'd file for divorce and try to claim I'd been the one hiding assets. Brad would disappear with his cut, and Jennifer would play the victim. The poor wife married to a controlling, possibly abusive husband who forced her to secret away money for her escape. We were going to let her play that card, and then we were going to destroy her with it. 2 more weeks passed. I'd become an Oscar-worthy actor, playing the role of the clueless husband so perfectly that sometimes I almost believed it myself. I laughed at Jennifer's jokes. I talked about our future. I even suggested we start trying for kids, just to see her face twist with guilt for a second before she plastered that fake smile back on. Maybe soon, she'd said. Let's wait until we're more financially stable. The irony almost made me laugh out loud. Finally, the day came. I came home from work on a Friday evening to find Jennifer sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread out in front of her. She looked nervous, her hands shaking slightly. "David, we need to talk," she said. "Sure, honey. What's up?" I played it casual, even though I knew exactly what was coming. I want a divorce." I let my face fall. Let shock and hurt register. "What? Why? Jennifer, what are you talking about?" "I'm not happy," she said, and I had to hand it to her. She even managed to squeeze out a few tears. "I haven't been happy for a long time. I need to find myself. I need space. Is there someone else?" I asked, my voice breaking just right. "No," she said too quickly. "No, this isn't about anyone else. This is about me. About us. We've grown apart, David. Surely you've felt it too." I let the silence stretch. Then, quietly, "I don't want to lose you, Jen. Can't we work on this? Counseling or something?" She shook her head, and for just a second, I saw something flash in her eyes. Impatience. She wanted this over with. "I've made up my mind. I've already talked to a lawyer." Of course she had. Some strip mall attorney who probably promised her she'd get half of everything. If only she knew there was nothing left to get. "Okay," I said, my voice hollow. "Okay, if that's what you want." She looked relieved. Actually relieved. "I think it's for the best. We can keep this civil, right? No need for drama. Right?" I agreed. No drama. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because what happens next is going to blow your mind. This is where everything I've been planning comes together. The next week, Jennifer moved out. Brad helped her, loading boxes into a truck while I was supposedly at work. Of course, I wasn't at work. I was parked down the street with Tony, watching and documenting everything. The cameras inside the house caught them laughing and kissing, celebrating their victory. "Free at last," Brad said on camera, popping a bottle of champagne. "To us, and to stupid husbands everywhere." They toasted with my champagne glasses in my living room, and I added it to the evidence file. Jennifer filed for divorce on a Wednesday. Her lawyer sent over the papers. She wanted half of everything, including the house, the cars, and all savings and retirement accounts. She claimed she'd contributed equally to the marriage and deserved an equal split. Patricia responded with our own filing. And that's when we dropped the hammer. We filed a countersuit that included charges of theft, fraud, and adultery. Ohio is one of the states where adultery can still affect divorce proceedings. We attached every single piece of evidence. The text messages, the bank statements showing her theft, the camera footage, time-stamped and dated, and even a toxicology report I'd gotten that showed elevated levels of melatonin and kratom in my system, along with a doctor's statement about the potential health effects. But we didn't stop there. Tony had done his homework on Brad. Turns out our boy had an outstanding warrant in another state for fraud. Something about a bad check scheme a few years back. Tony made an anonymous call to the police, and Brad was arrested at the gym where he worked, in front of all his clients and coworkers. Jennifer called me hysterical. "David, you have to help Brad. They arrested him. This is crazy." "Brad," I said, my voice ice cold. "Who's Brad, Jennifer?" Silence. "Oh, wait," I continued. "Is that the guy you've been sleeping with in our guest room? The guy you've been stealing my money for? That Brad." More silence. Then, "You knew." "I've known for weeks, Jen. Every single detail. Every lie. Every theft. Every time you drugged my food so you could screw your boyfriend in my house. I know everything." She started crying for real then. "David, please. I can explain. I made a mistake. I love you. We can fix this." "No," I said. "We can't. You should talk to your lawyer." Actually, you should get a better lawyer. A criminal lawyer. Because what you and Brad did, that's not just divorce material. That's felony theft and fraud. Maybe even attempted poisoning, depending on how the DA wants to prosecute it. You wouldn't, she whispered. Watch me, I said, and hung up. The legal proceedings were brutal. Patricia was a shark, and she smelled blood in the water. She subpoenaed Jennifer's secret bank account, showing every transfer of stolen money. She presented the evidence of adultery and the drugging. She even found the other women Brad had scammed and got them to testify about his pattern of behavior. Jennifer's lawyer tried to argue that she was a victim too, that Brad had manipulated her. Maybe there was some truth to that, but it didn't change what she'd done. It didn't change the fact that she'd looked me in the eye every day and lied, that she'd drugged me, that she'd stolen from me. The judge was not sympathetic. In the divorce settlement, I got the house, both cars, and all retirement accounts. Jennifer was ordered to repay every cent she'd stolen, with interest. The prenup we'd signed, at my father's insistence, thank God, meant she walked away with almost nothing. But the criminal charges were where the real damage happened. The DA decided to prosecute both Jennifer and Brad for theft and fraud. The drugging allegations were harder to prove as criminal poisoning, since melatonin and kratom aren't technically illegal, but the financial crimes were airtight. Brad, with his prior record, was looking at serious jail time. Jennifer, as a first-time offender, was offered a plea deal: 2 years probation, community service, and full restitution. She took it. She didn't have a choice. I saw her one last time at the final court hearing. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. All that confidence and beauty seemed to have drained away. She tried to approach me, to say something, but Patricia stepped between us. My client has nothing to say to you, Patricia said coldly. Jennifer's eyes met mine over Patricia's shoulder. I'm sorry, she mouthed. I turned and walked away. Sorry didn't give me back the years I wasted. Sorry didn't undo the betrayal. Sorry was just a word. But here's the thing, I wasn't done. Remember how I mentioned that Brad was a serial con artist? Well, Tony and I had done more digging. We found 5 other women Brad had targeted over the past 7 years. Some had lost money, some had lost their marriages, all had been manipulated and used. We compiled all the evidence and sent it to a journalist friend of Tony's who wrote for a major newspaper. The story ran with the headline, "Serial Romeo Scammer Preys on Married Women." Brad's photo was front and center, along with interviews from his victims, including Jennifer. The article detailed his entire scheme, how he'd targeted vulnerable women, seduced them and helped them hide assets before divorce, then took a cut of the proceeds. The story went viral. It was picked up by national news outlets. Brad's face was everywhere. His gym fired him. His family disowned him. And when he got out of jail 18 months later, he couldn't find work anywhere. The internet never forgets, and Brad the Romeo scammer had become a meme. As for Jennifer, her life didn't fare much better. Word got around our small Ohio community about what she'd done. She lost her job at the marketing firm where she'd worked. Her friends stopped calling. Her own parents were so ashamed they moved to Florida to escape the gossip. She ended up moving 2 states away, working retail at a department store, trying to rebuild her life from scratch. Me? I took a year off work, traveled a bit, went to therapy, learned that betrayal isn't something you just get over, but it is something you can survive. I dated a little, nothing serious, focused on myself for the first time in years. The house felt empty for a while, but eventually, I redecorated. Got rid of all the furniture that reminded me of Jennifer. Turned the guest room, yes, that guest room, into a home office. Started fresh. About 18 months after the divorce was finalized, I was at a bookstore when I literally bumped into someone. Coffee went everywhere. I started apologizing profusely, helping clean up the mess, when I looked up into the prettiest brown eyes I'd ever seen. Her name was Rebecca. She was a teacher, and she laughed at my clumsy apology instead of getting mad. We talked for 2 hours in that bookstore cafe. I told her I was divorced. I'd learned honesty was important. She told me she was too. Bad marriage, no kids, clean break. We exchanged numbers. 6 months later, I introduced her to my parents. A year after that, I proposed. And you know what? She said yes. We got married in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. Just two people who'd been through hell in their previous marriages and decided to try again, this time with someone who actually deserved them. On my wedding day, as I stood at the altar watching Rebecca walk down the aisle in her simple white dress, smiling at me like I was the only person in the world, I thought about Jennifer, about how she'd thrown away something real for something fake, how she'd traded a husband who loved her for a con artist who saw her as a mark, how she'd ended up with nothing while trying to take everything. And for the first time since that awful day when I'd heard her conspiring in our bedroom, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt grateful. Grateful that I'd found out who she really was before we had kids. Grateful that I'd had the strength to fight back instead of rolling over. Grateful that I'd found Patricia and Tony and all the people who'd helped me win. But mostly I was grateful it was over. That chapter of my life was closed, and a new one was beginning. I kissed my bride, and the small crowd cheered. Somewhere far away, Jennifer was probably still paying off her restitution, still dealing with the consequences of her choices. Brad was probably still trying to explain to potential employers why his face was the first result when you Googled romance scammer. And me? I was married to a woman who actually loved me, who'd never dream of drugging my food or stealing my money or betraying my trust. A woman who, when I told her the whole story of what Jennifer had done, had hugged me and said, "Thank God you got away from her." Yeah. Thank God indeed. The best revenge, they say, is living well. And standing there with Rebecca, starting our life together in a house I'd fought for and won, with money I'd protected and grown, with friends who'd stood by me and family who'd supported me, I realized something. I wasn't just living well. I was living better than I ever had before. And Jennifer? She was living with the consequences of her choices, which was exactly what she deserved. Some people might say I went too far, that I should have just divorced her and moved on. But those people didn't have their wife drug their food, didn't have someone they loved steal from them while they slept, didn't have to lie in bed and listen to betrayal happening under their own roof. I did what I had to do to protect myself and make sure Jennifer and Brad faced real consequences for their actions. Not just a slap on the wrist, not just a divorce settlement, real, life-altering consequences that would make them think twice before they ever did this to someone else. And you know what? I sleep pretty well at night now. In my own house, in my own bed, with my wife Rebecca beside me. No melatonin required. No kratom in my coffee. No lies, no secrets, no betrayal. Just peace. And if that makes me ruthless or vindictive or whatever else people want to call it, I'm okay with that. Because I won. I got my life back. I got my dignity back. I got justice. And Jennifer? Well, she got exactly what she deserved. That's my story. That's how I came home to get my wallet and ended up discovering my wife's betrayal. How I heard those words, "will increase the dose," and knew my marriage was over. How I turned the tables and got the revenge that both of them deserved. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share this. And remember, if something feels wrong in your relationship, trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs. Don't make excuses. Because sometimes, the person you love most is the person who's hurting you worst. And when that happens, don't just get mad. Get even. Get smart. Get everything you deserve. I did, and I've never looked back. Before you go, I need a huge favor. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. Seriously, I want to know because it blows my mind how many of you are tuning in from all over the world. We've got an amazing community here with so many viewers from the United States, the Philippines, and Canada crushing it in the comments every single day. And shout out to all my New York listeners. You guys always bring the best reactions. Knowing where you're from helps me understand who's connecting with these stories. And honestly, it just makes this feel more real. So drop your location below. Whether you're listening during your morning commute, at work, or right before bed. Let's see how far this story has reached. And if this story hit home for you, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, share it with them. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And remember, subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got more stories coming that you won't want to miss. Until next time, stay smart, stay strong, and never let anyone make you the fool in your own life.